I'll just speak up a little bit, then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, when I wrote this title, Flipping Out for Massive Data, I thought, there's not a lot to talk about with data, because I'll talk a little bit about the flipped classroom stuff and all that, because we've done a lot of that at the moment, try and get students really engaged with the learning. But to be honest with you, I talked so much about data in my presentation, and please excuse the fact these are all hand-drawn, because I got a bit bored of PowerPoint, so here we go. So this is the situation I want to avoid with the amount of data and the amount of lessons I'm doing with the flipped classroom model, which is sort of sitting back and going, just, yeah, get on with the videos and do stuff. I want to get engaged with what my learners are doing in the lesson. So what I really wanted to focus on was massive data, and that is an aim of making sure that I can get a mark from every student from every lesson in my mark book. Have they achieved something, to what level, and using that data to plan my lessons and individual student feedback. So what does that mean? Well, it means massive data is a very strange thing, because the more data you pick, it self-normalizes itself. What does that mean? Well, it's a mathematical term, which means that even if a student really underachieves one lesson but then gets back on track, that data is lost amongst the shed loads of information and tracking points you've got. So the times we do 6 assessments a year are lost on 2 assessments a week, which is fantastic. It allows minute AFL as well, so I can look back at all my lesson objectives and see what students have achieved, which is fantastic. It's a lot of work there. And also, students see you engaging with it. While they're doing their flipped classroom videos and stuff like that, I'm reading what they've achieved the last lessons and asking them for proof. There's a few negatives though, because it's a bit of a pain to capture manually. If you're an English teacher, this is a bit of a difficult job compared to my job, which is an IT teacher, and I can use electronic systems there and then. You will not use every piece of data either. We're used to using every piece of data that we get on a student. In massive data, you will not. You have so much information on them, you can't possibly look at it all. But it's all there to spot trends and stuff like that. Automation is needed to do it right. So what did I do? Well, I built a nice computer program system, because I've got those skills, I can go and code. And we built a system that collected information. We split our lessons up into 4 differentiated tasks per lesson. So we did it bronze, silver, gold, and platinum for the really high achievers who want to extend it. We used language on those that helped the students engage with the learning objectives. They talked to us about it. And then at the end of the lesson, they had to rate how they did. Didn't achieve bronze, silver, gold. And the platinum people had to re-provide me with evidence. Also, we set themselves a target next week on what we call the ADAPT framework, which is analysis, design, agreement, produce, and test, which is basically ICT in a nutshell. What that meant was, after a series of time, we get really good learning dialogue with the students. You look at the bottom there, that's a conversation I'm having with the student. They're setting their usual, I can't be bothered to type this, goals, and I'm asking them specific questions and getting a specific answer from them. So that's really good. But what does the data set look like? So I'm collecting marks from every single learning objective they are set. And this is what the data looks like. You've got 3 things on there. You've got 1, which is the class average. You've got 2, which is the target set for the student. And the 3rd, which is the red one, is their actual achievement. You see, this student started off underachieving for the entire class. And because they realised that we were doing stuff with this data, really brought it out. Those big points, the circle and the diamond on there, are where we asked the students to prove that they knew what they were talking about. Because I haven't got enough time to mark every student's piece of work in every single lesson, so I asked the students to self-mark. Normally, a student would go, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm gold, fantastic. So, every few lessons, what I would do is getting the student to provide me with evidence. So every lesson I take 3 or 4 students, they provide me with evidence from a sample I pick randomly. It's a bit like we Ofsted the students. We get them to mark their own work and self-analyse and tell us what they did well, and every lesson I pick a sample of them and they have to prove to me they can do that with a piece of work. This is sort of a quick workflow. You can have these slides, please have a look at if you're a non-IT teacher and you want to do this in a manual way. But the key thing is to set differentiated tasks, get the students to assess themselves and record that somewhere, and then when the students are getting on with the task they can be relied upon to do on their own, you can sit down, pick a random sample and assess them. If a student has not assessed themselves accurately, then you offset every future prediction by the amount of grades they were off. So the student that in their first lesson thought they'd really wind me up and say they were gold when actually they didn't finish it, is now being 3 levels marked down every time he self-assesses until the next time I ask for a piece of evidence from him. What this also means, if a student's doing really well and self-assessing really well, I don't have to take it in quite so often. I can rely on them to give me accurate feedback of where they are, and I can use that data really well. This is just a really fantastic thing, and this is what Google will do well with massive amounts of data and using it to analyse results. This is just using that in the classroom. So now, what I have for the last term and a half is an accurate representation of the level a student is for every single learning objective I have ever set. And over the course of the next year, I intend to do that with my entire department, so I can sit back and I can drill in and see where students are lacking. So if I'm writing a report, I can be ridiculously specific. That's me done, I think. There's my sad little waving face. Yeah, sorry for the lack of PowerPoint, I'm not that sick of it, as I said. Before I go though, if you like hearing me talk, because I like hearing myself talk, I do have a little podcast on the go at the minute, which is called Best Practice, and I'll tweet about that in a minute, but it's fantastic. I just talk to other educators. It's great. It's half of my time is just nattering away. I think I'm done now, Mark. Thank you.